Welcome back. All right, so some more news of the day for all you fine people for your Tuesday, April the 9th. I do my treadmill every day thinking, is stuff going to happen? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And in the case of after the trade deadline, it's usually injury news that comes out. So it's not the good news, not like when the trades happen. Now, there is some good news on the trade front. On the injury front, if you're a Vancouver fan, Elias Lindholm may play tomorrow. And he also has revealed that he was trying to play through an injury. So he didn't look good. He didn't look effective. It may very well have been an injury was hampering his play. So I'm willing to say, you know what? Fine. That may very well have been the problem. He says he's good to go now. So he may very well play tomorrow. And hopefully his play is a little more towards when he first joined the Canucks than the way it looked just before he left the lineup due to said injury. Demko, on the other hand, seems to be further out. They're not saying a whole lot about when he could play, so I know they want him to get games before the playoffs. Obviously, I like DeSmith as a backup. He is not a starting goaltender. Shilovs is not ready for that job either. So, yeah, the sooner Demko can get back, the better. Because for the Vancouver Canucks, their record is not entirely because Demko's been hurt, but that hasn't helped, right? So there you go. But Lindholm being back in the lineup, it'll be interesting to see just how effective he is. Connor McDavid, he is day-to-day, lower body injury for the Edmonton Oilers. He's right on the verge of 100 assists, too. He could miss the game against Vegas. So for Vegas, that's a huge game, especially since they lost the game in regulation yesterday against Vancouver. If McDavid's out for that game against Vegas, it does give Draisaitl that chance to be the guy, and very often if McDavid's out, Draisaitl does a pretty good job at being the go-to guy for the Edmonton Oilers. So it may not be the worst thing in the world. It may give Vegas a little bit of a different look from the Oilers, but we'll see, right? If McDavid can play, he will. He will play through pain. He showed that early in the season. He may very well tomorrow say, you know what? I don't want to miss the game against Vegas. And we'll see how everything goes there. Jack Hughes is done for the season. He's having shoulder surgery, so the Devils have shut him down. It's not the first time Hughes has been out of the lineup due to an injury this season. All indications are that after this shoulder surgery, he'll be good to go for training camp and 100% for next season. And that's the important thing if you're a Devils fan, because the playoff hopes right now are, we'll be honest, right? It's not going to happen. But Jack Hughes being out of the lineup, now in New Jersey, somebody else is going to have to step up and start scoring some points between now and the end of the season next Thursday. So we'll see how it goes for them. Interesting Elliot Friedman moment here on talking to Jeff Merrick, talking about the situation in Arizona. So there is a real possibility that Alex Meruelo, in the event that he can't make it work with the Coyotes staying in Arizona, he may sell. And there are rumblings here and there that may already be on the back burner. That just in case something happens, he's ready to sell, right? And the conversation then becomes, would the team stay or would it not? Friedman is of the mind that Bettman is so sold on the idea that Arizona hockey can work that even if the Coyotes, let's just say they go to Utah, he thinks that the NHL will try to go right back to Arizona with an expansion team. And that they won't be done with Arizona even if the Coyotes fail to secure a building, that they're going to do everything they can to be in that market. Now, to make that work, you need an owner with deep pockets. You need somebody who can secure a building. You need a lot of things that Arizona's had some trouble with. Meruelo's got the money, but of course the building is where the question mark is out there. And so we'll see how it all turns out, but there definitely seems to be, where there's smoke, there's fire when it comes to the whole thing with the Coyotes, and we'll just see. We'll find out at the end of June where things are at and whether or not it's going to work. And there's some debate about whether or not the NHL is happy about the idea of staying in mullet until 2027. That's out there, and I don't know how much credence there is to that, but it's out there as being a discussion that the NHL may not like the idea of staying in what's essentially a college arena for 3 more years after the first 2. So we shall see, especially given that Friedman's also heard that now there are 2 groups looking at bringing a team to Houston. And Utah is very, very interested. And the owner of the Utah Jazz may very well be sitting down with Bettman this week, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I still think the NHL would love to have money from expansion. So I think if they go to Utah and they go to Houston as expansion teams, that would make some sense. I've talked about that before. I know there are people who really don't want expansion, but outside of Arizona, there really isn't a team that you can move that's looks like they're not making money. They're not like, and even with Arizona, there's still that potential there. Like, I get where the NHL is coming from. I know people don't see that potential necessarily, but I get it. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the Arizona Coyotes. Vince Dunn, lower body injury. Jared McCann, lower body injury. They will not play tonight against the Coyotes. The Coyotes will be without Bjugstad, who's returned to Arizona. I haven't seen why Bjugstad's out. For Seattle, Adam Larsson's rejoined the team. Larsson should be playing tonight for the Seattle Kraken, so a little bit of a different look for that game between the Kraken and the Coyotes, which is going to have a lot of my attention because by the time that one gets started, a lot of the games that are starting at 4 are obviously going to be done. And so hopefully that's an entertaining game. Justin Falk, upper body injury for him. Reason I'm wearing a Blues jersey, he's week to week. Well, their season's over next Thursday, so it does sound like he's probably not going to return before the season's done. Again, week to week injuries are normally at least 2 weeks. So if they're still seeing him as week to week, if it hasn't been upgraded to day, then that tells me he's probably not coming back before the season's end, and you want to make sure he's healthy for the start of next season. So, yeah, we'll see how that all turns out for the Blues, and again, who jumps up and tries to prove themselves before the season's done. Because one reason to watch teams that are outside of the playoff picture between now and the end of the season is see who's really showing they want a job next year and who looks like they might have one foot out the door. There are definitely some players who may very well have one foot out the door. It'll be something that I get into when I'm talking about teams that miss the playoffs. Those videos start not next Friday, because next Friday, of course, I'll be doing previews for all the first round matchups. But during the following week, I'll be looking at the teams that have not made the playoffs, and that's something I want to throw in there is, looking at first half and second half point production and how certain players improved and certain ones didn't, and, what's their job status going forward. So that kind of, a little bit of speculation, a little bit of, discussion as fans about what might change between now and July the 1st. And of course, the playoff format discussions are out there. I'm not doing another video on the playoff format discussion. I've done it before. I've done videos on 3-2-1. I went through and figured out 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, and all this. And, it made a couple of very minor changes, but it wasn't earth-shattering. And so I haven't done it since. It has been a while. I know that there are people that, this model shows, like I saw an article today that said there'd be a 5-way tie for that wild card spot in the East if they did a 3-2-1 system. So 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for a win in overtime or a shootout, and 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss. I'm old-fashioned. I think 2 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, and 0 if you lose the game in any fashion. But that's me. Ties aren't coming back, so I'm probably the wrong guy to look to for that. But the playoff format discussions, again, I know most people want 1 versus 8 back. I've talked about how the networks don't want it. The networks pushed for a divisional format. They like to know in advance who's going to play against who. Networks are probably going crazy right now with the fact that we don't know what any of the matchups are right now. So while we as fans like for that uncertainty to be there, networks like to be able to really push and advertise those series well in advance of when they get started, and they can't do that. But obviously in rounds past this one, you know who's playing against who. The 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, everything, sometimes you don't really know who's meeting up in the next round because you do the whole reseeding thing. At least you can. We'll see if they ever change it. There's been discussions over the years, but again, I think as long as broadcasters want it to be a divisional playoff, I think that's what we're going to have. We already have 1 versus 8 and 2 versus 7. We just don't get 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5. So it affects half of the matchups. So at any rate, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. And I just wanted people to know, don't worry, I'm not doing a 15th video on the topic this year. I don't feel like it's needed. I feel like there's the other 14 videos on the channel already discussing the topic, so we're good. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.